I'm here today with the author of Tracing the Contours of Faith, Wayne Fehr. I'm really excited to conduct this interview with you and ask you a few questions. But before we start, Wayne, can you introduce yourself or say something about yourself?
Yes. The main thing I would say about myself is that I'm a theologian, meaning that I'm an expert in talking about the meaning of the faith. But I'm also a priest. I have been a priest since I was 31 years old. That was a long time ago. I'm glad to have this chance to talk about my book because it's been very important for me. That's about all I have to say as by way of introduction.
And Wayne, what inspired you to write the Tracing the Contours of Faith?
Well, I was motivated to make a book out of this material. The material goes back a number of years. The material of the book is a series of questions and answers. And I always wanted to put this together as a book, but various things got in the way. I didn't really do that up until recently. I feel that it's important to have the book out there so that people can read it and benefit from it. I'm glad to have this chance to talk about the book and to recommend it.
And how did you come up with the idea of addressing specific questions about the Christian faith?
Well, this goes back to the time when I was the pastor of a church. And I was invited, there was a newspaper being issued by the wider church. And they were looking for people to answer questions. So I said, well, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to answer questions, but the questions have to come from the people. So I wound up then basically every month answering whatever question had come in. And this continued for months, for years, actually. And I kept all these answers to the questions in my computer. And in the back of my mind was maybe someday I can revise all this and make it into a book.
And that's a good idea. Can you share some examples of the specific questions that you address in the book?
Yes, I'll give you some examples. The first one is a very basic question for Christians. The question is this: as a member of the church, I affirm each Sunday my faith that Jesus is risen from the dead. But what does this mean for my own relationship with God? And so then I answer that question. I'll give you another example. Every Sunday when we recite the creed, I find myself saying, we believe in the Holy Spirit. What does it mean to believe in the Holy Spirit? Does it make any difference in the way I am to understand and live my Christian life? So I answered that question at length. Here's one that people often ask: why does our church baptize babies? I can understand how meaningful baptism is for an adult person or even a child. But what sense does it make to administer this sacrament to an infant who cannot know what it means? what effect do we think this has on a baby?
I think that's a great question. I really like that one. And I'm interested to see your answer, and I'm sure it's in the book. So, what challenges did you face while writing this book?
What challenges did I face? Well, as I put it together to be a book to be published, my problem was I had no way of approaching companies which might want to take it and make it public. And yet, I thought that I had something good here. So somebody said, "Well, you can. There are companies that will enable you to publish your book, self-publish your book." And I didn't know that. So that's what I did. Um, I, I I I found a company that was willing to publish it, and I mean, the thing is, they don't really uh, try to persuade people to buy it. It's, in other words, there's no they don't propose that this is a book you should buy. It's there, and it's up to me then to tell people about it. But my present situation is, and I'm glad to have a chance to do some advertising of my book through you.
Thanks, Wayne. And how did you ensure that the content of the book is accessible to both theologians and ordinary believers?
Well, I tried to err on the side of making it intelligible to ordinary believers. Whether or not a fellow theologian, would be impressed by what I've written is another question. I had to simplify things, in order to make it something that the ordinary reader could relate to. So I wasn't so much concerned about my fellow theologians as I was about my fellow believers. And I think that what I came out with, I have a friend who is a theologian, and he liked my book very much. He was somebody said that if he had a chance to teach my book, he would, to use it as a textbook for his students. So
All right.
yeah.
Did you have to do any research while writing the book? If so, what source did you consult?
Well, this was not a kind of a thing that involved a lot of research. I mean, I was thinking and writing from many years of research. I had a doctoral degree in theology from the university, and I didn't so much feel need to do much extra reading. I needed to sort of get in touch with what I really already had thought about and what I already would like to communicate to people, and that that didn't involve a whole lot of research. I was drawing upon years of reading and study, and what came out is what was in me, and I think that it is something which is intelligible to the ordinary person.
And how did you approach the task of making the best insights of sound theology available to fellow believers in a non-technical way?
In a non-technical way. Well, what I was trying to say there is that I don't want to I don't want to write in such a way that it becomes unintelligible to the average reader. But I'm trying to open up a perspective for the average reader that would open his or her understanding of what I'm talking about. But I wasn't worried about being too technical, and I think people who read the book can make a lot of sense out of what I write, even though I'm asking them to think about things that they're not used to thinking about. But I think I do a good job with that.
Can you explain the coherent understanding of Christian faith that underlies all the essays in the book?
I have to smile at that because it's the coherent understanding of Christian faith is something that is basic to my personhood, the person I am. It's very much a matter of Jesus and what he means to me. And this underlies all the essays in the book. But some of the questions are about Jesus himself. And an example of that would be this question. As a member of the church, I affirm each Sunday in my faith that Jesus is risen from the dead. But what does this mean for my own relationship with God?
I like that hanging question. Um, did you encounter any difficulties in articulating complex theological concepts in a way that is easily understandable?
No, I think I have a gift for explaining things. I mean, I've been a teacher all my life. Um, and if it's too or complex, then obviously it's not going to communicate. Because I have to sort of simplify a lot of things, while so as not to lose my reader. Um, it's it's a very great challenge to do this sort of writing, and I find that people who read the book seem to find it meaningful, and that I think that I have succeeded in my effort to articulate theological concepts in a way that is understandable. Um, yeah.
How do you hope this book will minister to the faith life of readers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I I've had some people actually reading the book and talking to me about what effect it had on their faith life, and I think I've kept it simple enough and straightforward enough that people can interpret their life and their experience in the light of what I've written. And so my hope is that people will have their questions answered in a way that will enable them to live their faith, uh, maybe in a deeper way than they would otherwise.
That's really exciting to hear, especially for someone that's a Christian that wants to deepen their faith. So thank you for creating this book. What do you think sets this book apart from other books on Christian theology?
Well, I think what sets it apart is that is it's written for people, who don't have any training in theology, so that there are other books on Christian theology which try to, make the same have the same effect as my book does. Um, I think though that what really helps is to have an honest question that somebody raises for me, and so that they're motivated to think with me as I think through the answer to their question. Um, I don't think all books on Christian theology would have that same effect on people.
And did you have any personal experiences or anecdotes that influence the content of the book?
Well, I think my personal experiences really have to do with my own prayer life. Um, I I don't write my theology um, in a way that does not involve my personal involvement in what I'm writing about. And I, as a priest, I'm a person who is trained and educated in such a way that he or she can talk about the faith in a way that is meaningful, that really connects. I think that kind of personal experience is what has been so important for me.
How long did it take you to write this book, and what was your writing process like?
Well, I wrote the book over a period of years before it was a book. I was writing chapters of it, or they're not really chapters; they're brief essays. Um, and so it was only after some years of doing that I began to think about what I might do with all this material that I had in my computer, and it wasn't all equally good. So I tried to pick out the best ones, in my opinion. Um, so, but the final work of putting it all together as a book that involved, some pretty serious intellectual work, and I wrote an introduction to the book, which was an attempt to tell the reader who I was in terms of my life experience as a teacher and as a priest. So the writing process was kind of a long drawn out thing, and involved sometimes realizing that what I wrote wasn't really all that good on this particular question, and I put it aside. Then because I was trying to get the best that I had written. and put it into a book. And that took time.
Have you received any feedback from readers about how the book has impacted their faith?
Well, actually, yes. Um, um, a friend of mine who is also a pastor had a men's group that wanted to use my book. And so that over a period of really, once a week, they worked their way through my book. And one of them in particular, asked me to meet with him personally and talk about what it had meant to him. And he he sent a review of my book uh, to Amazon. With when books are available through Amazon, sometimes people write a review, and which is anybody then can read the review. And he just said that it had really deepened and sort of renewed his faith after working through a book which was not easy for him because he wasn't trained in theology. Um, but he found that it was very helpful.
Are there any specific messages or lessons that you hope readers will take away from reading this book?
I guess what I would hope is that they would find their own life of faith uh, deeper and more important. Um, because I would hope that people's faith life actually is deepened and deepened and made more bound up with our everyday life. Um, so that would be my hope for the book.
Now, Wayne, please provide information on where we can buy your book.
Yeah, well, it can easily be bought by going to Amazon. They sell more than just books, but they do sell books, and you could go to Amazon on find them on the computer, and you could simply put in my full name, Wayne L. Fehr, as a search thing, and it would come up, and you could buy a book through Amazon. A similar thing is possible through Barnes and Noble. Um, it's a similar kind of thing.
And Wayne, lastly, what was your experience like collaborating with Bookmark Alliance?
Well, I found that it was a challenge to me. Um, I was approached by one of your people um, just as a sort of a call where she wanted to know, whether I would want to work with you, um, to make my book better known and and to therefore um, well to make the book known. Um, and the more I work with people from the Bookmark Alliance, the more I felt this was the right decision on my part. I'm hoping, that other people will benefit from the way my book is presented.
Well, thank you, Wayne, for sharing your experience and for allowing me to conduct this interview. I'm really excited to start finishing or to finish the book and to see how you answered those questions that you were sharing earlier. Thank you, Wayne.
Okay, thank you.